Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think this is a question and answer if you have any questions. The film will air on PBS on May 16th as part of American Experience, so please tell people. It's going to air all over the country on May 16th. One thing that we don't have at PBS is, a lot of money to rent the side of buses and to, have big billboards. So we kind of rely on word of mouth. So please let people know that it's going to be on. And one of the greatest things for me in making this film has been, we've been able to kind of travel around with Freedom Riders. I just was in Indiana with Catherine Burks Brooks, who's the one who tells Bull Connor that you see him by sundown. And she's a character. And we were just in Indiana over the weekend, and it's just great, to see them come out, and they always get a standing ovation because they deserve it. But just to see them, so many who weren't famous and didn't get a standing ovation at the time, and to see them get the recognition that they really deserve, and to be even a small part of that has just been so gratifying for me. One of the great things that happened was a couple of weeks ago, I guess a couple of months ago now, the phone rang in my office, and it was Oprah Winfrey who saw the show somehow, some way, and I guess Oprah sees whatever she wants to see. So Oprah saw it, and she's doing this big show that's going to air on May 4th on the Freedom Riders, and she's actually flying all the Freedom Riders, which is like, I don't know, 200 to 300 people, to Chicago and putting them up for a couple of days, and they're going to be the audience for the show, and then some of them will be actually on the stage with Oprah and stuff, and she's going to do a whole big thing and show clips of the film and stuff. So that's been incredible. The reaction to the film has just been, something that literally we never imagined. We screened the film at Sundance a year ago. That was the first screening, and it's just been kind of this wild ride ever since. I'm going to China on Monday with the film, with a program with Sundance and the State Department. So it's just been great. There's a question there. Was that a question? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering, like, the research process. How long did the research process take?
The whole film took about 18 months, which is kind of a short amount of time for this kind of film. And that was partially because two things. One, American Experience approached us with the money. And so we didn't have that long lag time that so many times you hear filmmakers have trying to raise the money. They had the money. And two, it was based on a book by Ray Arsenault called Freedom Riders. And it's a 700-page book. And in connection with the film, about a month ago, he released a shorter version. I think it's like 350 pages, book, a shorter version, and that's also called Freedom Riders. But it was based on his book. So he had made contact with a lot of the Freedom Riders, and that was kind of our start, And so he, shared his information, and we just went from there trying to find more and more and more people. At the same time, I've done a number of historical films. So my company is Firelight Media. If you go to firelightmedia.org, you can find out more information about what we do. We'd love for you to do that and send us your email so we can stay in contact. We did a film called The Murder of Emmett Till, another one, Jonestown, The Life and Death of People's Temple, and some other. So we kind of know how to, know how to do these kind of historical films, and one of the things that you learn is that you start looking for footage and stills and stuff like that from the very first day, and you just keep on looking throughout the 18-month process.
Will it be for sale?
Yeah, the film will be for sale. It can't go on sale until it airs. So the day it airs, May 16th on PBS, after the film shows, there'll be that thing they say, if you'd like to buy this film, blah, blah, blah. and it goes out. But you could also, anytime after that, if you go to our website, Firelight Media, firelightmedia.org, you can get information on how to buy the film.
Yeah, I have seen the documentary a few times.
You have?
Oh, yes, I have. And I remember what Upton Kearney, you had mentioned during the question and answer period, you had talked about your experience with your staff and the crew being invited to have dinner with John Patterson. And that haunted me, absolutely haunted me, because, here's this, well, I guess what I need to know from you is, do did you find that this man changed?
Well, I didn't know him back then. So I can't say if he changed. Yeah, I mean, and that's interesting with me because that's all everybody. That's a question we always get whenever we screen it. You know, it's usually the first question, but you know, everybody asks, "Well, what's up with John Patterson? You know, why did he do it? You know, why did he do the film? I mean, I think that you know, for me, being asked that question over and over again, what I've come to think, and this is just my own thinking, is that you know he wanted to confess. You know, in the same way that people want to confess their crimes. And, you know, people don't want to confess their crimes to be forgiven. You know, they don't want to confess their crimes to be punished. They just want to confess, and I think he just wanted to really confess. You know, it's a strange thing. You know, John Patterson in Alabama lore, and Alabama is looked at as kind of a moderate, believe it or not. He defeated George Wallace for the governor in 1958. And then George Wallace came back and defeated him in 1962, and the rest, you know, is kind of history. So compared to Wallace, he's looked at as kind of a, you know, not so bad. You know, and I think what you're talking about, you know, it was a surreal day when we did that interview. We interviewed him at his daughter's house, and you know, he made us agree to stay for lunch and kind of have a nice lunch before we did the interview. So, you know, and so part of me was, as a filmmaker, I was just trying to get the interview, you know, and I didn't want anything to blow that. And, you know, and so I'm just kind of getting through the day. But it was weird because it was right after the Obama election. And, you know, and there was kind of this euphoria in the air. And in some ways, I think Governor Patterson shared that. I mean, he's a Democrat. You know, and I think he's such a political animal. So to him, in some ways, well, you know, we got the White House back. Now, I'm not sure who the we is, but you know, I mean, I think that's how he looked at it.
I was fascinated by the scene in the house with Dr. King and the Freedom Riders, and curious about, as you screened the film, have you got any reaction about airing dirty laundry, so to speak, and putting that out there as someone showing Dr. King in a more complete light?
There has been a lot of questions about that, and few of the Freedom Riders, in fact, we had a screening at Paley, and Lafayette was there, and he was very defensive of that. He was saying, no, Dr. King did this, did that. And I think it's just really showing the true colors of a lot of the people during that movement and during that time. But it definitely, you know, people take sides on it, but most of the writers have been very defensive of it, taking up for King, and almost like John Lewis, you know, they weren't, you know, that was sarcastic, that was, you know, being whatever he's saying. So that's been most of the response that we've had, at least from writers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, for us, you know, in the edit room was something we talked about, you know, a fair amount. You know, I mean, to be, you know, honest about it, as the director, you know, it's kind of my, you know, it's like my final decision, you know. And I kind of knew what was going to happen. I was going to use that footage because I liked it, and I thought it was meaningful. I thought it was really important to show that, you know, King changed and developed into the Martin Luther King that he became. And you know, I think, you know, so we're in a school now, and so maybe a lot of you have young kids. I have two 12-year-old kids, you know. And they're twins, not two brothers. and you know, I just, you know, and the way they learned the civil rights movement, you know, was Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King, Martin Luther King. And I understand that. It's easy to teach. It makes sense. You know, it's a nice round story. But there's a lot else that was going on in the civil rights movement. I think it's really important to show that. And you know, I don't think in any way that this film can ever take anything away from Martin Luther King, you know, and I don't think it does that. I think in the same way it can't take anything away from JFK, you know, but it shows where they were in 1961 and how they did develop as human beings, and how in some ways the civil rights movement pulled them forward, you know, and I think that's really, I thought that was really important to talk about in the film. Yeah.
Given the time and circumstances, and that reporters were beaten up and their cameras kind of, you know, destroyed, where did all the footage and the incredible visuals come from? Who is taking, this is like, you know, no digital, no, you know, you're talking
Yeah.
big format cameras
Yeah.
and where it's exquisite.
Well, it's
And painful at the same time.
yeah,
but-
yeah. I mean, if you want to talk stuff.
There was different, myself and Luann, she was doing the footage, I was handling the stills and newspapers. And one of the tragic things is that this was so early, before our civil rights movement really became a movement, a lot of the newspapers had destroyed like their archives, a lot of news stations discarded whatever footage. For Birmingham News, we were lucky enough to have found this unseen stills that an intern that was working there for the summer found, just like a box full of all these like negatives that were just sitting there, and a lot of those images were what you saw here. Another thing was Johnson Publications. They had pretty much had a vault over
That's
their entire
Ebony Jet.
They had a vault over seeing any of their stills, and we were like the first, we were the first company to actually go into their archives and have them just start pulling and digging. And the images that you saw for the first ride, Sir Gaffney, he was the only, well, there was two photographers. Well, Moses had a camera, but that was destroyed. But Sir Gaffney was, well, he's known as Sir now, but Gaffney, he was actually able to, you know, take pictures, and those were the pictures that he took during the first wave. So it took a lot of digging. It took a lot of just, you know, we ask everyone that we know. You check your attic, ask your mother, ask your mother's mother. The FBI, that was a gem right there.
Let me tell that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just to give you an idea of kind of the lengths that we go to, we found after the bus was burned, the FBI did these hearings, you know, in Alabama, and nobody, of course, was prosecuted because this was the FBI back in 1961. But what they did in one of the transcripts, they call this guy as a witness, and it was a name I didn't know. And so as I'm reading through, he says, "Oh yeah, well I lived like 100 yards down the road, and when they started the riot, my son ran out with the Super 8 camera and started filming the bus burning." And so we go back to the FBI and say, and then he said, "But I don't have the film because the FBI confiscated it." So we went to the FBI and said, you know, "Do you have this film?" And they said, "We don't know what film you're talking about." So we faxed them the pages, you know, underlined, you know, with the guy's testimony that said they had confiscated the film. They said, "Okay, we'll get back to you." And then 8 months later, they called us and said, "Oh, we found the film. Do you want it?" You know, and so it's just like that kind of digging. It's like, you know, it's like detective work, you know. It's going to be like the new TV series. There's going to be CSI. There's going to be documentary filmmakers. Everybody will be bored to death. But, you know, I mean, that's kind of what, you know, we go through, just trying to follow every lead. I mean, we could probably talk about 100 of them that don't pan out. But, it, you know, it's just kind of following stuff and using the time that we have. So, you know, we're not trying to put the film together and then look for pictures. You know what I'm saying? The first day, we're looking, as somebody asked, how do you find the people? As we're looking for the people, we're looking for pictures and we're looking for footage. Because I realized early on in starting to make this film that we said one of the first decisions we made was we could make this film without narration. Let's try to make this film with no narration. And realized that if we did that, that the pictures and the footage and the radio stuff would all be more, that just made that stuff more crucial. Because you don't have that extra kind of crutch of narration. Because narration is like another tool, that if you take that tool away, what do you replace it with? Well, we try to replace it with more and more pictures and footage and stuff.